Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Karma Summit 2020 India. The session that we are going to be listening to today is Inclusive Impact, the Challenges of Sustained Corporate Volunteering. I am Dr. Simi Mishra, currently working as the Director for Program Advocacy at Connecting Dreams Foundation. I come with about 17 years of experience of working with global teams in the corporate sector. And in my role at CDF, I'm co-creating ecosystems for volunteers from colleges, corporates, and communities, and enabling them to work in an ecosystem which has co-created solutions for their local community problems, using sustainable development goals as defined by the United Nations as a common frame of reference. So far, we have impacted more than 5 lakhs lives and have done about 265 projects and engaged about 11,000 volunteers, which we call change makers. I want to thank you all for taking time to join us on this very important discussion around inclusive impact and the challenges of sustained corporate volunteering. Sustained corporate volunteering is a challenge that has been faced by several CHROs. As organizations grow in their volunteering programs, the challenges of evolving a long-term volunteering program that remains exciting, elicits a lot of participation, and avoids volunteer fatigue. These are, some of the issues that become more and more obvious as we mature in working with volunteering programs. Today, we have two very distinguished and esteemed panelists with us who come with a great experience of CSR in the field of, doing a lot of work with the communities, as well as having diverse experiences, specifically when it comes to volunteering. Let me introduce to you Mr. Anurag Mishra and Ms. Shilpa Sinha Harsh. Mr. Anurag Mishra is the CSR head at Cipla Foundation. And Mr. Mishra, would you like to take a moment and just introduce yourself?
Hi, Simi. Good afternoon. And thank you very much for putting me here on this panel. And good afternoon to Shilpa also. As you rightly mentioned, I'm heading CSR for Cipla Foundation right now. And I've been with Cipla from last almost 6 years. And I'm hardcore development professional. 10 years I worked with different NGOs. And then I moved into corporate sector just to get an insight on how CSR projects are being undertaken. So I have a diverse experience of oil and gas and mining and now into pharmaceutical. And very passionate about community development work and also about volunteering, which has now evolved quite rapidly. So I'm looking forward for this session and to learn and to share the experiences on volunteering.
Thank you so much, Anurag. Thank you. That was really insightful. I'm also delighted to welcome Ms. Supriya Sinha Harsh, who heads the CSR and the Global Corporate Communications at HGS. Ms. Sinha, would you like to quickly introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, Simi. Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks a lot, Team Goodera, to have me on this platform. Really looking forward to engaging with all participants today and sharing my experiences. I come with around 21 in the field of corporate communications, CSR, and diversity, and extremely passionate about volunteering as a subject. And volunteering is something that we really focus within HGS. It's like a mantra at HGS. We work to give, and really looking forward to sharing my learnings here with the panel. Over to you, Simi.
Thanks, Shilpa. Thank you so much. So with that, let's get started with today's discussion on how to create, more meaningful volunteering programs that encourage inclusivity and involve maximum number of employees and stakeholders in the volunteering process. So there's something that I've noticed in my years of, corporate engagement with various organizations and now as a foundation. And I've noticed that, there has been a gradual shift over the years on how corporate and civil services organizations or nonprofits interact. It's no more just about, donating or funding, but volunteering has taken off life of its own. So that society has become, increasingly interested in volunteering for making a change, making an impact. So to start off, Anurag and Shilpa, I'm kind of curious to know, why is inclusive volunteering important today for an organization? Volunteers and both from the non-profit perspectives as well. And secondly, what does it communicate about the culture of the organization? So this would be a very insightful question, which I think both of you are really qualified to share with us.
Looking at the question, why is inclusive volunteering important today for an organization perspective? If I can say that volunteering at an organization, it's clearly a microscopic representation of its culture. It showcases the organized values, equality index, and the real passion towards giving back to the community. Volunteering also, if you look at it, is an extremely important tool and a mechanism to engage our people. A lot of youngsters and a lot of people who work with organizations these days want to give back to the community, as you rightly said. And we work with them. And how do we kind of make it inclusive? I mean, I'll give you an example. Volunteering events become a very level playing field kind of events, and they break the organizational hierarchies. Example, there is a Diya painting event. You have a senior leader also painting the Diya there, and you have an associate painting the Diya there. You have someone with people with disabilities over there, someone from an LGBT community there. Everyone coming together, doing one activity with passion. That's all about inclusive volunteering. And that really, really breaks the hierarchies, brings the minority groups together at one activity for doing good to the society. And I think that really reflects the culture of the organization.
Absolutely well articulated, Shilpa. Anurag, I would love to understand your perspective and your insights.
Well, adding to what Shilpa mentioned, I, completely concur what you mentioned. I will just add one more aspect to it that, as a human being, I think volunteering is naturally ingrained in human beings. Everyone wants to give back to the society, and everyone do their bit in their own personal spaces. But when it comes to the organization, I think it lot depends on how organization has structured itself to provide those opportunity to each and every employee. If I talk about Zipline, I will give you two examples. One of COVID. And COVID is a recent example. And, COVID is pan-India. One disaster, pan-India, pan-world. Now imagine the diversity with which you have to manage this disaster. Whether you talk about availability of food for a slum dweller, or you talk about a medicine in a hospital, or you talk about clothing, or you talk about livelihood. So much of a diversity in terms of what you need to do. Now, this diversity need inclusion, inclusion of resources, inclusion of knowledge, inclusion of people who want to participate. So examples are like, we have truckers who come to the depots, and, in COVID time, I think pharmaceutical was one of the sector which was not stopped because of reasons known, and the drugs which is being produced. So all across our depots and plants, truckers were coming. But since there was a lockdown, there was no food available on the roadside. Dhabas were closed, roads were empty, and they don't have food. So what we did was, as part of our CSR and volunteering, we started providing either cooked meal or raw packet of food to the truckers who used to come to the depots or the plant. And it was the plant people who are responsible to ensure that, they provide those stuff to those truckers. And here the local, variance and, local team involvement plays a critical role. So someone in Maharashtra, team member who are from Maharashtra, and the truckers who are from Maharashtra, it was easy then to connect, So one was inclusion of, diverse group of people coming from volunteering, and also to leverage the expertise which the team had, and also to demonstrate, that if the organization is working, each and every person who is involved in supply chain, irrespective of where they come from, are equally, taken care of. So that is one example, on inclusion and the diversity and why it is. The second example is we run a big palliative care center in Pune, and we have been running that center from last 23 years. And in fact, that center is all about providing pain management and relief to the patient who are suffering from cancer or any terminally ill disease. We started this center with the concept of family care model. Means we said that the family members also stay with the patient, because family members are equally, aggrieved, mentally, traumatized, and they also need support. So what we do as part of the entire palliative care concept, that, even family members are trained how to take care of patient, and family members are trained into different diversional activities which are done at the center for the patient. So it's not just the doctors or social workers doing activity, but it's the family member and the caregiver who are also involved. Now this classically demonstrates the diversity. It talks about the inclusion. Even we got a lot of elderly people from Pune who want to participate and volunteer, so we got them also in. So in fact, the biggest cohort which we have of volunteers of these elderly people who participate there. So these all things, if you look at one side COVID, other side a palliative project from last 20 years, you can very well see that how organization has weaved itself around the people and ensuring that whatever resources are available are used to address a particular problem. And that's how I think within foundation and within CIPLA also a lot of CSR activity has ensured that people from different background, different knowledge resource are tapped in to undertake volunteering program.
Absolutely inspiring, Anurag, especially that whole thing about the palliative care. I think very inspiring. So I'll kind of now move on to the next question that's kind of coming to my mind. And currently I'm kind of working with a project which has been launched for the last 2 years, which focuses on building inclusive spaces for transgenders and the LGBTQ community. And I was kind of surprised to see the kind of unseen barriers that this particular project exposed me to. The volunteers, the community, the corporates, all of them have their own perceptions. And these need to be kind of bridged even before the work and about sensitization or kind of doing some other work started. So I'm just kind of wondering that, as both of you are part of, large corporates, have been kind of working with the communities for a very long time. How do corporates actually approach this? How do they actually make that, the volunteer program is inclusive and involve the volunteers from diverse backgrounds? You talked about disability, you talked about, people from different cultures and linguistic kind of, diverse backgrounds, and so many more are there. So just wanted to kind of understand if you had any insights to share about the approaches which, we could kind of learn from.
I'll give you some examples that come to my mind here and just trying to bring it alive with personal experience here. See, virtual volunteering can be done right now from anywhere, across geos, across backgrounds. And the very nature of it, the very nature of having it virtual makes it a lot more diverse as well. Like an employee from Jamaica at this point can volunteer for an NGO in India and, look at teaching kids, looking at developing audiobooks, anything, the skill set, what we look at when we look at focusing, volunteering programs, we focus on the impact. We automatically pick volunteers who have the right skill set, irrespective of the background of the volunteer. A volunteer at this point probably, or in generic programs, helping a resume preparation activity for an underprivileged youth can be a person with disability from an HR department or a marketing department. It is about focusing on the skill set of the volunteer, irrespective of the background. I think that is something that all organizations, and we specifically, take care of. That goes a long way in building an inclusive background, inclusive program. And also, I'll say that designing programs where unique experiences and knowledges of employee from, these groups can be leveraged by an NGO partner. Mm-hmm. We have certain specific abilities, servicing and working on certain programs and projects. And these employees of ours with their skill set go out and work with NGOs where people with disabilities are there, in terms of coaching them, training them, getting them ready for the corporate, is something that we look at. So I think it's all about looking at what is the impact that you want to deliver through the program, and then picking up the volunteers irrespective of their skills, their background for the program, delivering on the skill set and the impact.
Sure. So thanks, Shilpa. That was very nice of you to kind of articulate. And I love the example that you talked about, Jamaican person helping somebody sitting in some remote corner in India. Wonderful that, that we are using technology to kind of overcome some of the barriers. Anurag, my question to you would be to continue with the same question, but I wanted you to kind of, focus on the barriers that you have come across when you are working with, your employees. And how do you think, and, what role do you think that the leadership can play in overcoming these barriers and cultivating a very inclusive volunteering culture?
I think, most important aspect while doing employee volunteering is to sensitize employees much before they get into volunteering on a subject. That's very important. And how we do that is, at the time of structuring the program, we think at that time itself, what are the scopes and opportunity of volunteering in that program? And we say that it is not just financial investment or funding you are doing. Let's look at human resource investment, which can go into the project. Simple things like, fire safety, say, for example, in a Anganwadi project, how important it is to have fire safety protocols in place. So how do you ensure that your fire safety team do some sort of training, some sort of drill for the NGO to ensure, that is being taken care of? Or a health van which is running in community. Why it is important that drugs are stored at right time, at right temperature, the logistic of drugs are done well. So we have a separate team who in-house have expertise. How do you bring them out and do that? Or say, for example, disability, that's a big subject in which we work across the country. So what we do is, one is, from the NGO side, when the projects are designed, you create a component of voluntary. The other aspect is we have series of mailers and communication which goes to the employee on different subjects. We do, a sort of a round table also where, leading experts are called in. And then, a sort of a webinar or seminar is done in which people hear the voice and people understand the subject. The third thing which we do is that at sites level, we generally have monthly meetings in which, again, different projects which are going is being talked about with the leadership team. And we want leaders to take ownership of different projects. And that's how when the leaders start taking ownership, by default, it percolates down and the team down below, also gets engaged in that subject. Also, we try creating some role models, within the unit or within the plant where, certain people who have a natural inclination for a subject, how do you then bring them for a particular volunteering aspect? And then they are the one who became ambassador within the plant. So those are few things which we try ensuring. Plus, at times we also do that. We invite NGO partners to our plant to talk on that subject. And that also, create curiosity. So these are few ways and means to which we have done. Now, if you talk about barrier, I'm saying that initially, not just here, but anywhere, when you go and you start doing things, sensitization of that subject is very important. So that is very important. People have to be told that volunteering is not about going outside the plant for 2 hours and coming back. That is not volunteering.
Right.
So then you make people aware about that aspect. And similarly, from the NGO side also, we sensitized it that, it's not a corporate which is coming to volunteer, because then they also have a different perception that people might come for 2 hours and go back. We say that these are the people you look at from the investment perspective. A person coming to volunteer who have finance background, how he or she can help you in your project planning or your, say, for example, your accounts or your audit, So from that, so we try working on both the aspect to ensure that there is a win-win. NGO also understand and appreciate the fact that people have come, and the volunteer who goes there also understand that I have actually created some change, by doing this. And one litmus test to it is that we have seen a lot of volunteers come back to do re-volunteering, and on the same subject. I think this is one litmus test for us, which we have put in, that how many times people do come back on the same subject and talk about it.
Wonderful insights, Anurag. I think I absolutely love the litmus test, as you called it. It is something that even I have seen, and I'm sure, Shilpa, you also must have seen, even after the programs are finished, people stay invested because somewhere there's an emotional connect also. Right. So, Anurag, now that we are kind of, like in a situation where COVID seems to be the new normal, I'm sure it's kind of, posing. You did kind of, talk about the truckers and how that posed a problem to you. But for volunteering programs in specific, how do you make sure that, the volunteering still goes on? And how is it, like, what are you thinking that, will the COVID situation and the way that we are today, how is it going to impact inclusive volunteering?
So in fact, I would say that COVID has actually complemented volunteering to large extent. No one thought that volunteering will go online. And I will give full marks to Gudera, the way they have evolved the platform and the way they have bring on different partners who are willing to do online volunteering. So in fact, I am seeing that more and more people have now opportunity to volunteer, because earlier when we used to talk physical, people have to go outside the office, take approval, sit in a car, go to a place and then do volunteering. While, nothing can replace that. But I'm saying that, given the circumstances, I anticipate that it will only expand. It will only move beyond what we thought of. And I think once the new normal comes in, we will look at a hybrid model of both offline and online. And could be that people start with offline, and to ensure continuity, they move into online mode. So honestly, I think that it's a good time. And, at the right time, I think all of us moved in that space to provide people those opportunities. So I honestly speaking, I don't see that as a challenge.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that I don't think this is a challenge at this point, because as I said earlier also, it is all about the technology and the virtual volunteering, as we say. The scope is immense, from helping NGOs develop content for teaching kids at the student, or organizing. On Children's Day, we did a very lovely exercise of telling stories to school kids. And that's something that our people will enjoy. And they, as Anurag said, they don't have to step out of their homes. They can do it within the comfort of their home. So the opportunity is immense, virtual volunteering, definitely.
Great. I just love the attitude that both of you have. The silver lining behind the cloud is what you're seeing, and kind of, changing the entire thing into an opportunity. So this is wonderful, actually. So I'll kind of, move on to sharing an experience of mine. And that kind of, is a segue into the next question. So Connecting Dreams Foundation worked with Intuit, which is a global, finance company. And we used, volunteering and used it to kind of, work in Western UP with some very small businesses. So 80 such small businesses were chosen. And it was a mini MBA in finance kind of a program that they did for them. Now, while the volunteers were there with us, for only about 3 weeks, we saw that, more than I would say 80% of the small businesses were impacted, and impacted positively, so that they got, a twofold increase in their business. Now, I'm just kind of thinking that, that kind of just as a reflection, that obviously when we kind of, look at volunteering as an activity, and when corporates, look upon it as a volunteering opportunity, there is a lot of thought that needs to go into designing this volunteering activity and sustained volunteering programs. So I just wanted to kind of understand from both of you that, what are the parameters, or what are some of the things that you kind of, keep in mind? Shilpa did mention impact. I heard Anurag not really kind of say it, but, he was looking for value. And sustenance is also something that we've been talking about. So besides these three, is there anything else that you would kind of, keep in mind while doing, a designing of a volunteering program?
So another aspect, which we often also look at in terms of, how we can support an organization in long run, So not necessarily in one time. So I will just give one example. Let's say, for example, we run a program with Pratham Books, where we try giving books to school children. The earlier model was that we used to procure books from them, and that's how the books used to go to the schools around our plant. But now we have changed the model, and we have said that why not employee contribute those books as a donation, and then it goes in the local area. Now that has become a program which happens year on year. Year after year, that program happens, where every year we actually do one yearly event called Joy of Caring. In that Joy of Caring, earlier it used to be in a physical form. This year we did in an online format, in which employee come and contribute for a cause. So we don't say that you have to come and buy, but the cause is that we want to reach out to maximum number of children around our plant by providing books in their hand. So similarly, there are other causes which we are linked and associated with, in which we try helping organization in whatever way we can. Similarly, there are other organizations who have livelihood program and who have products available. So through these programs, we also try helping them sell these products, which are then bought by our employees. And there are quite a bit of organization whom we work very closely with, where we, provide those physical spaces where, these organizations can come and display their product, and then that is sold out. So those are few things which we also look at in terms of volunteering. But going forward, we are also looking at long-term engagement. So say, for example, we run a 3-year integrated program for graduate student to do a full-fledged graduation course. We are now looking at how employees from the plant can adopt a child for mentoring for 3 years. Which will be in continuity. And these are chemistry program. So of course, the scientists and people from R&D will look at, quasi adopting a child and helping that student in that 3-year journey in terms of learning. So that is another initiative now we are looking at. And as we move up, our objective is that see if, those program or those whatever activity we are doing has a long-term, value proposition. And I will say that, we'll always have a mix. You will always have, 30-40% program, which is like one time where people go and come back. And there will be another 60%, which could be, in long run, if you want to do it. The other objective is that we don't want to sit on drawing board every year to say, okay, this year what we will do. We don't want that. So then, this is what the mix which we are looking at in time to come.
I would agree. Continuity. I think I would agree. Continuity of programs is a key when it comes to designing volunteering programs. Looking at impact, that year on year, this is what we are going to add to this certain aspect of the society or a cause that we are looking at. And also, I'd just like to talk about one thing here. Volunteering programs, when we are evaluating, we try and see that what are the chances of this getting into fatigue. Many a times, people are the volunteers that we have as a litmus test. Yes, people need to kind of keep on coming back to volunteer for the programs, and hence the innovative method, while the support, the impact for the cause continues, the focus on that continues, we need to look at it, and we continue to look at the fact that how can we keep on innovating our volunteering programs. And that is something that is very, very important when it comes to working with certain NGO partners, because they need to be extremely flexible and to work along with us to say that, okay, this is the focus, this is the impact, and to make it sustainable, we have to innovate. That becomes a litmus, if I can say, or a critical aspect for us when it comes to designing programs.
Great. I think both Shilpa and Anurag, great takeaways and insights from answering that question and listening to you. What I understood and I've kind of, formulated is that there seem to be multiple stakeholders whenever we come to sustained volunteering. Each stakeholder is looking for something transactional, something to kind of, come back to them. So how do you manage that out? And, what do you think are the benefits that most of the stakeholders are looking for? You have a corporate sponsor, you have the volunteer himself or herself, and then you have the communities, and you may have intermediary partners as well, the NGOs, for example. So what do you think are the values, or what do you think are the, takeaways that or benefits that these stakeholders are looking for?
Okay, I think this is an interesting question and difficult question, equally a difficult question, not easy. Because honestly, this is something which we are still working on. It's not something which we have, I would say that we have fully, come up with. But yes, anyone who wants to volunteer, first thing is that they want to look at a cause. Very important, and cause which is close to their heart,
Yes.
So that's very important. Not necessarily everyone will do whatever you tell them to do. So that's why what we do is that we have an online portal which we are using it through Godera, so there one can go and pick and choose. So half of the battle is won once a volunteer choose a cause which is close to their heart.
Yeah.
Half of thing is done. The other half is the experience of volunteering. So when people get into that particular volunteering, whether it's education for a child or training an NGO partner, now how do you make that more seamless, more interactive, and more productive? So for that, I think the important aspect which we try focusing on is to give a bit of a brief to employee before they volunteer. So we do small engagement with that employee to tell, this is what is going to happen, this is what is expected from you, and this is what organization is expecting. And equally on the other side, we talk to organization also and tell that, this is how things will move. The third aspect is after volunteering is done, then what next, and how it has impacted or not impacted. Now that is also not now in all situations it doesn't happen, but in some situation where we can go back to employee and say that this is how their contribution has helped either the organization or an individual. So that also we are very cognizant of fact that we do go to employee and tell them about those aspects. But I will say this will still take some time to evolve, and this will still take time to bring some perfection, because I think one big challenge is that the word volunteering itself has a bit of a misnomer, in sense that it is generally believed that volunteering means I go and I come back, not much is expected. But we are looking at something which is more strategic. We are looking at more which is long term. We are looking at something which gives some results which are more tangible. So I think it will take a bit of time, and we will evolve with the time. And I think with organization like Goodera and our peer organization, I think we need to learn from each other that how we have cracked this and how we want to move to the next level.
Absolutely, Anurag. I'm sorry to throw that difficult question to you, but I think that was a very valuable answer that you gave, where you said that matchmaking and the kind of platform that Goodera has is very important, and it plays a critical role. Also, I think the value set matching between the volunteer and the program emerged as a second, very important parameter to kind of look at. And also this orientation or teaching or, making sure that the skill matching is kind of, appropriate. That is also, I think, drives the success of the volunteering programs and sustained volunteering programs in specific. So with that, thank you so much for giving that insight. I would now kind of move on to the next question, which is saying that, we've spoken about sustained volunteering. We've also kind of, come back and said that volunteering should be sustained. But, given the fact that volunteers, specifically in the, corporate sector, or even the student volunteers that Connecting Dreams Foundation works with, they are also engaged into, they have a 24/7 kind of a different job as well to kind of take care of. And often, despite, not wanting to, they do kind of, face a fatigue, or maybe there are, conflicting priorities that kind of come up. And I'm just wondering if you have any insights, any thoughts about, have you experienced that volunteering fatigue in your organization? And any best practices about, how others or, people can kind of, learn from it, how to overcome that, any best practices?
I think you rightly said, fatigue is very, very natural. And so going back to what Anurag said, first and foremost, if we can, it's like the matchmaking, as you said, if they know exactly what they are going to volunteer for, and if that cause is something which is very close to their heart, they will volunteer, they will find the time. So definitely, if I can say, having the right causes and the volunteering programs that echo with the people, keeping on looking at that, keeping them very relevant to the target audience or to the people who have to volunteer, that becomes a must. Second, also here it is, it's about driving that through in teams. Because if they see their teams continuously kind of doing it, the people that they work with, their leaders, it has to be out of the boardroom, as I can say. They have to see, it has to be real. They have to see their leaders volunteering. They have to see their, the people they work with volunteering. They automatically feel and they take out the time to volunteer. And I think the third aspect that we have seen and that really works as a best practice, if I could say, is volunteers. These guys are our heroes. And we take their stories out within the organization and say, you know what, this is what this guy has done, this lady has done. And this is the impact that they have helped us create. They are the poster boy of the campaign. So in a way, what they are doing is all making of the campaign, making people kind of, it's somewhere in the motivation also that I would like to do this. I would like to be seen as someone who is also helping take this cause ahead. And that we feel having the regular, sometimes we see that it works.
Thanks, Shilpa. That was insightful. And Anurag, anything that you would like to add to this?
Yes, just adding to what Shilpa mentioned, I think this is very natural, in terms of fatigue, in terms of people missing out, business priorities, these things will keep coming. And we have accounted that, while we structured this volunteering. And we said that if we get a hit rate of 50, 60%, it is okay because, these things, this is how it moves. What we additionally do is that we ensure that the line manager and the leadership is, equally placed in public, equally placed in, within the organization to say these are the people who are also volunteering, and these are the people who will support you, if you volunteer. So it's not that, if you have an important business meeting and equally you have a volunteering, you along with your leader or business lead can decide, what are my priorities and how I should move. Number two, what we also do that if people missed out, we go back and ask them, what was the reason, and we try to create a smaller volunteering spaces for them, which could be what Gudera call as a micro event, which could be a small event, because we realize that even people also regret missing out volunteering. It's not that people are happy with missing that out. So we appreciate this fact that they have taken lead on business urgencies and business priorities. We fully appreciate that. And we said that, hey, why don't you join a small, volunteering, which is only for half an hour or 15 minutes, and people happily do that. So I think those appreciation, admiration of fact that they have certain business priorities, making them feel, good that, it's not that they have missed it. So, the world has ended. There are a lot of opportunity which will come. I think that these all things work in favor. And I believe that in, gradually in time to come, as Shilpa rightly mentioned, that people then, on weekends and holidays, and people by default come of their own, that what are the next opportunities coming? Can I go there and participate? So continued engagement with employees, whether they are volunteering, not volunteering, missing the volunteering, I think that's critical.
Great, Anurag, that was wonderful. And that reminded me of a time when I was with Accenture, and we had, about 40 hours kind of devoted to volunteering. That was counted as productive time. So is that something that, both of your organizations also follow?
So we are in the evolution phase. I would say that we are now, moving into that direction of putting certain man-hours and mandated. But I would say that, fortunately, we are in a space which is a healthcare space where patient care. So there is by default a lot of volunteering which is happening naturally. In COVID time, because Cipla was involved in a lot of drugs which has to do with COVID, and, employees used to get called day and night, and how they moved, drugs to different places. We realized that a lot of volunteering was happening. So by default, the sector is such that, people, patient care, human being, those things come naturally. So as of now, we are looking at, putting some sort of a policy, and probably, because of COVID, things got a bit lag. And we are hoping that, once things are back to normal and people are in offices, probably we will have, certain mandates available within the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We do run it in a structured manner at AGS, and we do track the number of hours that we are putting in for volunteering. As an organization, we also track collectively how many people are there and all of that. We're also trying to see if we can work towards having a pro bono policy as well.
Sure. Congratulations, Shilpa. I think, that's a wonderful initiative. Yes. And like Anurag said, it's a evolving situation and which keeps changing. And I'm sure, Anurag, you'll also kind of, get there as well. So second observation that I had is that, we, since I now am a part of, NGO, and we realized that, most of the volunteers do kind of, come or get drawn to a particular value or program due to some kind of a virtue or maybe an emotional connect. Now, we also realize that, that volunteers nowadays are placing greater and greater value on the quality of the opportunity, a commitment to rebuilding and regenerating communities, and the ability to make a positive and visible impact. In 8 years of experience with Connecting Dreams Foundation, I've also recognized that, our volunteers must operate efficiently and effectively, just as a corporate would kind of, expect. And the skills needed just go beyond management and marketing and maybe just, some basic information technology. So in our approach, we've kind of, created something what we call the 3C framework for all the volunteers to kind of work across in different programs. So when you are working with so many different diverse NGOs, and some of them are grassroots NGOs, and some of them are highly evolved NGOs, some of them are even NGOs which have been there for about 40, 50 years. So corporate has a lot of expectations from their NGO partners in terms of building sustained voluntary programs, because it's an engagement between two partners, and also looking for impact. So what role do you think that NGOs can do to actively engage with corporate volunteers and increase their outreach?
So, I think the most important aspect for volunteering from the NGO perspective is that at the time of project design, I think certain level of discussion should happen between the corporate and NGO in terms of what are the possibilities. So while a grant application form is filled in or a budget sheet is filled in, I believe that at that same time, equally, the emphasis should be given on volunteering also. And when I say volunteering means in my budget sheet, where can I use human resource, which is available either side, or in a project application form, what are the key activities which can be further embedded into the project to ensure things can be done. I will give simple example, like, we used to work on hepatitis. Now, hepatitis is a silent killer disease. There's Government of India policy. And when we do a lot of advocacy campaign on hepatitis, we ensure that employee equally participate in those campaigns, as a volunteer. Even for palliative care, you'll find this very interesting. Our palliative care center, every day we celebrate annual day. And palliative care, I treat that as an NGO because it's a separate entity. Every year, annual day is celebrated, and there's a competition between different manufacturing unit to come and do performance at the center every year. So every year across India, one unit comes and stays there for 2 days to perform for the patient and the caregiver. Now, it's very easy then, when you structure engagement like that, it becomes very easy. But then I think both the organization has to understand each other well and try to find opportunities. Equally, I think at the corporate side, I would say, and as Cipla Foundation, we are fortunate that most of us come from NGO background. And that helps very well to understand the other side. And that's how, when we work with NGOs, either it's a small organization or a big organization, we do keep these things in mind that, what are the volunteering opportunity which can come, and which could be as small as doing one, a walk for a cause, say, for example, or as intense as, mentoring a student for 3 years. Now, depending on what the bandwidth of organization is and how employees are interested, that's how, we try to structure. But it's very important that, people like us keep, opening those doors to talk to organization about volunteering. And equally, we also encourage NGOs that, you also should, create forum and platforms on volunteering and say that, you also need investment in that direction, not just, project funding, but you need huge amount of resources which sits within the corporate, in different departments. How do you utilize that? So I think, a forum like this, a platform like this, more and more, platform would be very helpful to break that barrier and understand each other's perspective.
Absolutely. Shilpa, would you like to add to that?
I think, as Anurag was saying right at the beginning, when we are discussing the programs with our NGO partners, I think we need to keep focus on two things. What is the impact that we're going to arrive at basis this activity, and how do we track that? Keeping a mechanism absolutely very crystal clear really helps. And second also is, many a times we've seen that a certain program has been designed, and when we're seeing that probably the impact is not happening, or that volunteering fatigue is happening, how do we reinvent that? We really request our NGO partners to be flexible when it comes to that, to reinvent and to bring back the program, still keeping our eye and focus on the impact.
Absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of NGO partners listening in today would kind of, make a note of the inputs that both of you have given. And I think, we can look forward to an ecosystem where engaging with volunteer corporates and, like any of the volunteers is going to be more and more easier as teams understand each other. Now,
and I think,
sure, Shilpa. Yes.
I think it's very important to have that conversation going. Many a times we see that we go to the NGO partners and say that, do you think something like this is doable? And as Anurag rightly said, and I'm reiterating here, the number of people or the resources that corporates have, if our people join hands with the NGOs, there's a huge workforce which is available. The resource group is immense. I think keeping the conversation alive always is very important.
Exactly, exactly. And I think this is a resource pool that most NGOs don't really tap into and are at times, not even aware that, that may be a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So I'll kind of now ask you a slightly different question. There are many other people who are here at the summit, and they are kind of, talking on diverse topics. So what do you think is it that you would like to learn from other organizations or leaders during the summit? What are the few things that you're looking for?
So I would be really keen to look at how we can enable our NGO partners clearly from a technology perspective. With so much focus now in the new paradigm or in the new normal on the whole virtual volunteering, we can do a lot of classes, we can develop a lot of content, we can do a lot of activities. But for that, in the end, the beneficiary needs a smartphone. The beneficiary may need a laptop. How are the others working with NGOs? How can NGOs be enabled to help the end user, if I can say, with this whole technology enablement here? That is something I'm keen to understand.
Sure. I'm sure there would be somebody in some session answering that, Shilpa. Anurag, anything in
Yes,
particular you are looking for?
from my perspective, I realized that during COVID time, it was the development sector who was hit very badly in terms
Yes.
of funding constraint, in terms of project not happening in field, in terms of job losses, in terms of a bit of a gloomy future. So what are the possible support which can be extended to, organization in terms of volunteering, in terms of ease of technology? Those are few things which I'm very keen to, look at and understand, how things are evolving. I think that's important for the entire sector to focus a bit more on and prioritize in time to come.
So Anurag and Shilpa, I think those are certain things that have hit us quite recently, and so we are all kind of leaning upon each other. I'm sure that somewhere on the summit, someone is going to be kind of talking about this and would be able to give you some inputs. So with that, I think we are kind of drawing towards the end of our time, and I would like to kind of close the panel discussion with your permission, with a very big thank you to Budera for bringing out such wonderful panelists who were very open and gave a lot of insights. I would also want to say that, thank you, and let's stay connected with the wonderful group of people who are kind of listening in today. And if any of you have any questions or any specific things that you would want to ask of our panelists, I would encourage you to kind of put it into the chat or write to us. And I'm sure both Shilpa and Anurag would be more than happy to revert back. Thank you so much for being with us. A very good afternoon.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you,
Simi.
Simi. Thank you, Anurag.
Thank you.
You've
Thank
been a
you. Thank you.
great host for us. Thank you, Simi.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Karma Summit India. My name is Shri, and I am a manager in the business consulting team at Goodera. I really want to thank you all for joining us today for the discussion on strategy for CSR continuity. This is really a great opportunity for everyone in the CSR ecosystem to understand ways of building strength and resilience in the CSR programs to ensure their continued impact. This is important, especially in today's pandemic hit world, where there are numerous challenges, the challenges ranging from those for human interactions, business operations, social development projects, their planning and execution as well. Today, we are extremely lucky to have a diverse panel of experts to address such an opportune and vast topic. We have these experts coming from corporate, NGO, and academic backgrounds with decades of experience in the social sector. Before we begin the actual discussion, I want to introduce all the panelists to the audience today. We have Mr. Pankaj Ballab. He is the Vice President CSR at Bajaj Auto and comes with 25 years of experience of working with grassroots development organizations and large MNCs, dealing with issues of development, sustainability, and corporate responsibility. Welcome, Pankaj. We also have Ms. Supriya Singh. She heads the CSR vertical at Tata Communications. She comes with over 16 years of experience in this space. Her work primarily focuses on creating large-scale sustainability programs through multi-stakeholder partnerships for societal transformation. She is the national coordinator and member of ESD Expert Net, a four-country network supported by the German government. We are delighted to have you join us, Supriya.
Thanks, Tejashri.
We also have Sripat Desai. He is the MD and Country Director of Americas India. He brings in 30 years of experience in India's healthcare and development sector. He oversees all the aspects of the organization's work in the country, including emergency response activities, access to medicine, and highly successful clinic to community programs for the urban poor in India. Very, very glad to have you with us, Sripat. Welcome.
Thank you, Tejashri.
We have Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan joining us today, and she is the Organizational Behavior and HRM professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. She is published researcher with her research interests being women on boards, business and human rights, and HRM in the rapid growth context. She runs a website as well called www.teachcsr.com, which is intended to enable faculty in business schools to mainstream teaching corporate responsibility. Vasanthi is currently on the board of directors of Enable India and Fourth Wave Foundation. Thank you for joining us, Vasanthi. Thank you.
Thank you, Tejashri. Thanks.
Okay, so coming to the session now. So COVID-19 shook the world in an unforeseen manner, and its impact was unprecedented since 1930s Great Depression. No one ever imagined the destruction of economies of more than 100 countries across the world that was caused by the pandemic. Every country tried to grapple with the pandemic by diverting funds, resources towards relief and rehabilitation activities. The corporate sector and the NGOs were some of the key contributors of these activities. This resulted in the CSR priorities being shuffled. Plans and strategies needed to be reconsidered. And if we have to do so effectively, establishing strong partnerships between the corporates and the NGOs is extremely crucial. In this session with the distinguished panelists today, we will discuss strategies based on their experience to reprioritize CSR goals, funds, and programs for continued impact despite the constraints imposed by such a pandemic. They will also ideate together on ways to build sustainable and impactful partnerships while effectively mitigating such risks. Let's start off this conversation by first understanding the magnitude of damage caused by COVID-19 to the CSR programs and initial response to that by the stakeholders. First question to you, Supriya. What kind of projects do you think were impacted the least and the most because of the pandemic?
So I'll start off by talking or giving a sense of, the CSR universe that Tata Communications has. So we work with about 16 partners and across 9 states in the country. And we primarily work in healthcare, education, and sustainable livelihoods. Now, if I have to answer this question, the easy answer would be that the projects that had a higher level of digitalization were the ones that were least impacted because they could still continue in the digital format and digital mode. But I think this is a much deeper question because, of course, all projects were impacted. We were under a lockdown for about 3 to 4 months, and that was a strict lockdown. So any program that had that was at the grassroots, that required people-to-people connect, and I'll be surprised if there's any CSR project that doesn't have that element. I think everything was impacted. But what we also need to reflect on is that more than the project at the grassroots, the working of the organization itself was impacted. The field staff that are not often spoken about, who actually implement these programs, could not travel. There was constraint on mobility. Not many organizations were prepared for a work for home situation. So while when we talk about work for home for the corporate sector, it's essentially understood and it's widely practiced, but in my experience, I realized that some of our partners struggle a lot with this situation of having their staff overnight transform to us or, adapt to a work from home situation. So I think there are two parts to it: how organizations themselves were impacted, and then, of course, project on ground. But in terms of types, I would say I think most programs were severely impacted, especially school programs, I would say, because learning in a lot of ways has come to a standstill in the country. And for us, we saw it was slightly more easier to work in the rural areas, our programs that were there in the rural areas rather than the urban centers, because they were really the hotspots of the pandemic.
Right. I think I want to draw from that idea which Supriya mentioned, that the organizations on the ground got impacted severely. So Sripat, next question to you, since you're representing the NGO universe today for us. What are the top 3 areas of NGO operations you think got severely impacted because of COVID? And in which ways NGOs are responding to that situation?
Sure. That's a great question because like the entire world, of course, the world of NGOs also is impacted by COVID-19 situation. And I would say I would divide that impact one in immediate term, which is typically the 0 to 3 months, and then a medium term, which typically goes up to, let's say, next 2 years. I'm not really talking of what happens after 5 years, but for the discussion's sake, if we look at these two aspects, I would say the NGOs were both impacted negatively as well as positively. And I would also spend some time talking about how the NGOs have taken positive out of it, because there's a lot that has been talked about the negative impact of the COVID, So when we look at the the immediate impact, I would say, if in one line, the immediate impact, like Supriya mentioned, I think work came to standstill. In the first 0 to 3 months, there was no access to the beneficiaries for 2 reasons. One, lockdown, and for many organizations like us who work predominantly for urban poor, migration was one of the major challenges that came across, because we were not able to, and because of which we were not able to reach the beneficiaries. That had a direct impact, obviously, on our program delivery. And for a healthcare organization like Americas, continuity of care became one of the bigger challenge in the immediate term. Not that we didn't address it, I'll come to how we address it, but that I think most of the organizations face that. Third most important aspect that I want to highlight is the human resource constraint for a NGO staff itself. So we have to appreciate that most of the NGO staff, particularly grassroots level NGO, comes from the communities that they operate in. And they are, like, for example, in my case, we had 3 healthcare workers who live in Dharavi, and we know the situation in Dharavi. So we had a situation wherein our own staff were at risk as mental stress, mental well-being issues, and even burnout. And I don't think many NGOs were prepared, equipped to address the staff health issues per se. So I would say in immediate term, that were the issues. As we move further now, when we look at 6 months to 24 months period, I feel one line impact of that is going to be that NGOs will no more be able to do everything they wish to do or they are good at. Why? Obviously, we know that there is budget optimization that's happening. In my own organization, I would say we have 3 major programs wherein we have sat across with the donors and we have renegotiated the budget, so to say, in terms of our program delivery as well as obviously budget impact to the tune of 25 to 40%. So that I think is a one sizable impact. That would also have a direct impact on reduced wages in terms of putting staff under pressure, because the moment you have budget reduction, there are pay cuts that are happening, and we know the situation right now that onions are available at 100 kgs, and we are forced to reduce the salaries of our staff who are, like I said, coming from the same community. Third most impact what we have realized is that FY21 projects, so many projects were starting in April and COVID hit in somewhere in that period. So many organizations, NGOs that I know, wherein projects were stopped and the money funds were diverted to COVID, so that's really another long-term impact. Having said that, what is the positive? How did we as an NGO fraternity turn around the situation? I would say yes. One, we were forced to think alternative ways. I think one of the biggest positive of COVID is that NGOs have been forced to think alternative ways. Yes. I have a mobile health center program which reaches out to about 800 people every day, and we had a situation in March wherein we were no more able to deliver it. But we were quick enough to come back with a telehealth program thanks to the electronic medical records that we use, and we were able to quickly turn around and reach to our beneficiaries and be back on the road, as they say. Sure. Second aspect I would Sripat, like to talk about is.
Sorry, yes? We'll talk about the future-proof, making the projects future-proof in our last section. So please save your comment for that section if you don't mind.
Sure. So okay, so you don't want me to talk about the positive impact right now. Okay, sure.
Yes, so we'll look at it as an opportunity in the last section. So
sure.
So coming to Pankaj, so Supriya and Sripat articulated very well for us what was the impact the entire ecosystem felt. So Pankaj, can you elaborate for us your approach to reconsidering, reprioritizing and restructuring your CSR investments, partners and cause areas that you work in, so that you could actually invest in COVID-19 relief and rehabilitation?
So what I was saying was that Sripat, I think, paused at a very relevant point that need to talk about the positives, and that's where I want to start. So we worked with close to 250 partners directly, and I think the remarkable feat was that the lockdown was declared on 25th. On 27th, we were able to start supplying cooked meals to around 40,000 people. I think 2 weeks into the lockdown, one of our first NGOs restarted their mobile healthcare program in Uttarakhand. So I think before many of us were kind of able to react, I mean, we started getting inputs from partners who were in some state of readiness to respond. So, and like the midday meal program repurposed this kitchen and the food stock they already had to start providing meals for the migrants. The other good thing was that even though it was a lockdown, some of the civil society organizations were able to get permissions, because food distribution is a huge logistical challenge. 40,000 migrants were not at one place. They were dispersed in 550 locations in Pune. We were able to supply them, and within a very narrow time window, because the cooked food goes bad very, very quickly. So the food was able to be delivered to them respectfully and while it was still edible. I think, so we found many such examples where people and many organizations that are working in rural areas where the lockdowns were not so strict were also able to create collective kind of reactions where food was supplied to each other. So many interesting things happened. I mean, and I think whether they were donor-led, I would say not. Whether they were triggered by the community, not by the organization. I would say I don't have evidence either way, but many interesting things happened that we still need to kind of get together and collate. I think digital, as Supriya mentioned, was a very easy, low-hanging fruit for many organizations to start reaching a part of the community. And the minute they started, we realized that digital access is a myth. It doesn't exist in the real world. 10%, 15% have it. And then you introduce elements like the earning member needs to carry a phone with a particular app on it in order to access their work site. The phone goes out of the house. It is not there inside the house. Zoom, which we are using so happily right now, is a network hogger. So 2 hours of Zoom and you are through with the 1.5 GB for the day. So I think there are a lot of interesting challenges and we are still learning in how to kind of take it forward. But I think
Okay, I think we'll move on. So Vasanthi, I want to now ask you, you are a researcher, right? You are an academician. So what is your perspective on the approach which was taken by corporates and say like the entire CSR ecosystem towards addressing COVID-19 challenges? How would you look at that from a researcher or academician's perspective?
So I think I would look at it in terms of 3 perspectives. Okay, so broadly, the first one that I want to talk about is what Pankaj mentioned, which is about what we saw happening was organizing, not organization. Often we confuse these two as, yeah, we think we need organizations to do organizing. Actually, what we saw was organizing was happening by different actors, and several of them would not traditionally fit into a CSR, a corporate, an NGO, none of those labels. There were bureaucrats out there organizing just as much there were common citizens who were doing it. Okay, so in some way, I think for the first time, India recognized the power of organizing, and probably the closest we may have come to this was during independence, because that's what history tells us, right? We have not seen it, and I think we have taken it for granted that organizations are the only way to organize, okay? And that's a myth that I think has been challenged. What are the implications for this? We will have to look at as it unfolds. The second piece that I want to reflect on is to build on what Sripat said, which is that there is a power, a native intelligence of innovation. I think under all these systems, procedures, frameworks, and everything, we have lost the native intelligence and innovation that anybody can bring to the table. And I think COVID has been able to help us to discover that we are natively intelligent people and that we are capable of solving our own problems with a little bit of facilitation. And the last one that I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that we have not yet even now recognized that COVID is a complex problem. So far, we have seen simple problems. How do I make sure that communities get delivered the benefits that we are providing? That's a simple problem. A complicated problem is making sure that every member in the community has access to a medical checkup, or you have the entire education system set up in a way that children can actually acquire life skills. Those are complicated problems. We will have to try them once, try them twice, and you'll get it right after 5 times. And I think CSR was headed in that direction of getting it right in the last few years, which the NGOs have done for several years, okay? But a complex problem is one where there are very high interdependencies. And anything that happens in one part of the system has implications for all actors, intended or unintended. Okay? It's that complex system that COVID is. It's uncertain, it's unpredictable. We don't know whether it's a first wave, second wave, third wave. So in some ways, a complex problem requires systemic, interconnected thinking. And at this point in time, I want to just leave saying that I am not able to still see that systemic, interrelated thinking to handle complexity. And which is why the point that Sripat said of 24 months or 36 months, I'm also able to see 5 to 10 years from hence, because I looked at the Spanish flu and the plague. The consequences are only 5 years later. What happens when children, like Supriya said, have dropped out of school for 1 year? How do you actually bring them back? What happens to the TB patients and HIV/AIDS patients who've dropped their treatment? Those are not fixed in a day or a year. Okay, so complex problems have consequences, unintended and intended, and I think we are still figuring that out.
Right, right. I think the biggest takeaway from what Vasanthi mentioned right now is the inclusive development and how we need to come over the frameworks and the modules and all of that and really look at the native intelligence and the ability of all the stakeholders in the CSR ecosystem to give and take. It's not like one stakeholder is capable of giving and the other one has to receive. So really, thank you everyone for your inputs. And from these conversations, we have realized that the challenges faced by the entire ecosystem required combined efforts. And the projects that stayed on and continued had strong partnerships as the foundation. If we have to make the ecosystem work in a more inclusive manner, I think what we need is, as I said, the give and take between all the stakeholders so that we have impactful partnerships and the impact of them lasts really long. The next section, we are going to discuss the real on-ground experiences of you all. So Sripat, what inputs you think an NGO would require, say from a corporate partner, to future-proof their projects before, during, and after such a pandemic? The inputs I'm suggesting are along the entire program lifecycle, be it in the planning or designing stage or at the planning and execution stage. So which inputs are required by an NGO from a corporate?
So when we talk of post-pandemic scenario, I think I think all stakeholders, be it donors, NGOs, government, and even beneficiaries themselves, I would say, are still learning from this pandemic. Every day, I think we know that new data is coming and it's offering new information, and therefore a lot of fluidity currently in the system. But if one thing that we have learned as a development sector, I would say, is that what brought us here won't take us there. I think that's something that has clearly come out of this, particularly when I represent the NGOs, when I look at our partner NGOs and even fellow NGOs. So one thing that will help us survive is, I would say, redesign and realignment. And I think that's where I would say corporates would play a very, very big role. If you ask me, three things that each NGO is, just like every country, every corporate CSR or corporate strategy per se is undergoing a change, I believe every NGO, and I'm talking of say sub 10 CR NGOs, we'll have to look at our so to say business model, so to say our purpose model, and so on. I think three areas that I would request, I would see corporates playing a bigger role is one in helping the NGO partners to redesign, rethink their strategy. So one is strategy development, I would say. Second could be technology and innovation. We are hearing technology and innovation are the buzzwords, but I don't think the grassroots NGOs are yet ready for it. So that would be the second piece. And third most important thing, which is going to be important, because from QI and QA perspective, when as a non-profit, my purpose remaining same when my resources are limited, I have to make sure that I am able to deliver in place of 12 visits. If my health worker can do only 6 visits, and if I have to achieve the same result in 6 visits, obviously there has to be a appropriate QI and QA going in. So I would say, to summarize, maybe hand-holding in terms of helping the NGO to identify what is their core mission versus say complementary initiative versus peripheral activities, and helping the NGO to bring their all resources first to deepen their core mission. That's something that would be really helpful. Second, digital adoption. And I want to talk about, I want to take clue from where Pankaj mentioned, everybody is talking of digital, but You can imagine a banking CSR initiative wants the beneficiary to have a finance literacy model. A school is wanting them to have a school e-program. I am like a healthcare organization wanting them to have a health app, and nobody is thinking about the beneficiaries. So how do NGO think about integrating their digital model? We can't have 20,000 NGOs designing 20,000 apps, obviously. So there is a lot of learning, and as NGOs, we don't know how to address it. So I think that's another area that where corporates could play us. Innovation, again, corporates are so used to innovation labs and brainstorming sessions. I think that would be really helpful. And third most important thing in terms of process optimization tools, the discussions that we are having here, I think that is the third most important help that corporates could do to NGOs so that we are ready for the future post-COVID.
Really nice. Thank you. I think that was quite insightful answer. I think I want to go to Pankaj to talk about the flip side of this, to understand how and what learnings that corporate can get from the NGO counterparts. What kind of tools and processes you think can be shared between the corporates and their NGO partners so that they can learn and adapt from each other?
I think there are many. I mean, and when I'm saying NGOs, I think, and Sripat, I think, would agree that there are NGOs and there are NGOs. I think participatory tools is something that the NGO sector has worked with. I mean, since I started in 90, I think that was our bread and butter kind of way of doing things. So actually, I mean, if you look at CSR rules and regulations, the beneficiaries don't have a voice in it. They are passive recipients of largesse given to them by the corporates. I mean, it's a terrible structure for doing development. I mean, it's a horrifying structure. So then it is up to us, the people who are involved with execution of CSR, to build into our systems, our processes, those participatory models that the NGOs know and work with. The other, I think, is, see, outcome, and this is one of my favorite bad jokes, that when you talk about low-hanging fruit, somebody else had planted the tree. Otherwise, 6 mahine mein no tree gives you fruits. So, I mean, if you want instant results, do agriculture, don't talk about horticulture. So that patience that the development sector requires is not there in CSR, that you need to invest in communities. You need to not invest in impacts and end of 6 months. What is the transition in the baseline? We need to forget all of that. So I think there are very many elements of the way NGOs have understood how development happens on the ground. And I think one of the big problem areas, and I think Sripat and others will have to really work on it, the wrong messaging is also largely being done by a certain set of NGOs. There is a reason why all of CSR is comfortable with impact models, is that nobody is telling them that, hey, listen, impact doesn't happen in isolation or doesn't happen in 6 months. So why is a certain set of NGO community hiding the background work that has been done over 5 years, 6 years, 1 decade? So I think there are many things we need to learn and many things we need to be taught. Learning doesn't happen without a teacher. I mean, Vasanthi is a professor, she would realize that. I mean, you need to be coached, and I mean, learning can be in many different ways. But I think CSR needs to learn how to learn first, and then there are certain very fundamental tools that we need to start using, certain expectations we need to moderate. I mean, there is a huge learning opportunity here, and which will also benefit us in the way we do our business. I mean, learning how communities use soap probably will benefit people who make soap. So, yeah.
I think what I would take away from Sripat and Pankaj said is, the having really the bottom-up approach rather than sitting in a room and imagining the reality, and rather
That's
doing.
Why I wanted my camera to show you the outside, not show you the room only.
Right. So Supriya, actually, next question to you. See, risk such as this pandemic, right, needs to be thought through from a future-proofing perspective. So, as a CSR leader, how do you ensure that you kind of incorporate the risk management systems and processes in your CSR budgeting, project planning, and also the kind of partnerships you pick up?
So I think the first thing I would say, and what Sripat has been saying, that we are still learning from this, Tejashree. We have not seen the end of the pandemic. And it will be a while before we, actually can very confidently say what we have learned from this. So, please humor me with what I'm going to say, because it's really some of the early, I would say at best can be called observations and reflections. I wouldn't even say these are concrete steps that everybody should take. I can talk about what we did at Tata Communications and what was some of my personal reflections. So when all this happened, I realized how uncomfortable we are with uncertainty. It's not that uncertainty never existed before the pandemic. It has always been part of our lives. But as professionals, we are so uncomfortable with uncertainty that when we make strategies, when we make these blueprints, especially in this sector, I would say that we don't do a thorough risk analysis. That's because we feel everything will fall into place. That's one part. Second is sustainable development or sustainability is complex. It's wicked. It doesn't have one way to resolve it. It needs long-term, commitment. Probably a full generation actually to solve issues. Poverty cannot be eradicated in 5 years or 10 years. So we need to ask ourselves as corporates, and this is something we are doing at Tata Communications, and we've always very actively believed and pursued long-term commitments and long-term partnerships, is that how long should we commit to a cause? Because you have COVID today, you can have something else tomorrow. And in a country like India, we are just one blink away from a disaster. It could be a flood, it could be, lightning and thunderstorms, because of which every year we lose people. And because it's just 1,800 people, it doesn't make news. But we are losing people to such incidents. So long-term commitment, and then, we will never get it right. I think one of the things we have to start accepting that it's not a linear process. We do 5 things and that they will result in exactly the kind of impact that we want. No, it's never going to happen. And we have to be okay with it. Everyone has to be okay with it. The corporates, the NGO partners, academia, leadership, XYZ. I think we need to be okay with things going wrong and things not happening as per plan. So what we did at Tata Communications is quickly we took a look at a strategy, and I would give you 5 steps that we followed and we are still following. The first one is we said we are going to improve our community listening, because in our effort to implement programs, I think somewhere the ability to listen carefully to the community has sort of gone out of the window. So we said we will go back to our community when the situation improves, or if we can do it howsoever, and we will improve our listening to understand what is their real need. And again, all my co-panelists are voicing it in many ways. It's not about getting, staying safe from COVID. It's a better healthcare system that we are talking about. It's not about getting your child admitted to a school. It's about getting a better future for your child. So, what is the real aspirations of our community? So that's one part. The second part is we want to, of course, work on delivery mechanism with our NGO partners, and enable them and enable ourselves to look at alternative, blended, modes of delivery. I think this is important, and again, it's not going to be resolved in 1 year or so. The third part is we are looking at sort of working with our NGO partners to look at their HR policies, not in terms of having some kind of an oversight, but exchanging our learnings in human resource practices. Can some of our practices be translated to the social sector? in terms of, can there be a better mobility policy? For instance, we are trying to look at that. So we are really trying to look at the details, and we are not just trying to scratch the surface now. So we want to ensure that our partners do have these robust policies, so that they can sort of withstand the sort of shock. The fourth one is repurposing partnership. What are we partners for? What is it that we are trying to gain through this partnership? How are we establishing relationship in a partnership? Is it transactional, or are we aligning at the level of some aspirational goals which inspires action over a long period of time? So repurposing partnership would not mean doing just meetings over Zoom, but it would be really taking a step back and saying, all right, what can we do better? How can we make our relationship an opportunity for mutual learning, individual learning, societal learning, so on and so forth. And the last one is, we've got into risk analysis of each of our project and trying to look at, in different geographies, the risks are different. In different communities, the risks are different. So I don't want to use that phrase, but we have to adapt, and we have to see that these differences are integrated at every level of planning. So we are very fond of saying in this sector, one size does not fit all. But what does it really mean? Have we gotten our hands dirty and gone down to the level of, okay, what community, how many men, women, are there young people, are there teenagers, adolescents, what are their needs? It requires a lot of work. So I would just stop here, and these are some of the things we are doing, but we are not yet there. And I can assure you, it will take us at least a year for us to actually say something conclusively on how far or how much we have progressed on these 5 years.
Definitely. I mean, I agree completely. We are still on the way of learning, but the 5 steps that you mentioned would really be helpful for, the organizations who are thinking of instilling the risk management plans into their projects. I think I want now turn to Vasanthi to understand what is the role of the government. So I'll explain what I mean. So, when the CSR became mandatory, it also implies obviously that the government has to make a conducive environment for various partnerships to bloom and to function efficiently. So do you think government policies have any role or a significant role to play to help these stakeholders, be it corporates, NGOs, community-based organizations, whosoever they are, to build stronger partnerships and work for sustainable impact? What is the role of the government here?
Let me start by saying that I think we are very harsh on ourselves, okay? And why am I saying this? First one is that this act was passed only in 2013. So first, its whole implementation is only 5 years in some systematic manner. This is a legislation which is new to the world, not just new to India, okay? So in all fairness, legislations have existed for 150 years and we still have not been able to crack it. So what is it that we actually want? Okay, so let me pause there for a minute. Second one is that as long as it was not legislated, I think we had a right to quibble over it. After it has been legislated, like Pankaj said, we only have a choice of figuring out how to implement. Okay. The third piece, I think there is a trust deficit in India vis-a-vis the government. The corporate sector does not trust the NGOs. The NGO sector does not trust the corporate. Neither of them trust the government. And then we all say that the government does not trust any of us. Okay. So to my mind, this trust deficit is not sustainable in the long run. Okay. So if you tell me, will the CSR work without a government support? really, what are we talking about in terms of how much all these corporations together are going to give vis-a-vis the total budget of the country? I mean, let's put it in perspective, okay? So my personal take is that the time is past to talk of, is this the way the act should have been? Should it have been? Yeah, I think the time is past. The only way we can engage with it is that government is a stakeholder, will continue to be a stakeholder, because long after corporations stop and NGOs stop, it is the duty of the state to protect its citizens. So let's not escape that reality, okay? So my own sense, as I work with all the three constituencies, especially on the drafting committees of some of the reports that have come out in the last 2 years, I have two insights, and I think I'll probably leave with that. The first one is that the way the government thinks about its implementation is largely from one of top down. CSR is bottom up. So which means in this process of top down to bottom up, it requires enormous upward pressure, which includes reports organizations should be putting up. They must be a part of the stakeholder consultations. And right now, I'm not going to make a difference between the corporates or the NGO. It really doesn't matter, because both of them have to be a part of the policy making process. Okay, there are organizations which are a part of it, but as a community of CSR professionals, have I seen some really comprehensive, insightful stakeholder feedback to influence a policy process? No way. So as far as I'm concerned, CSR departments do not today have the capability to influence the policy. NGOs, what is their role? They have been implementing agencies of the government. Now suddenly there is no funds to implement. You're looking at CSR as another option. So in that kind of a mindset, where are you actually strategic on a policy? You are strategic as far as your organization is concerned. This is not a great conducive environment for policy transformation. Okay. So my sense is that we need as a country to build policy capability. And in that, we are still infants. We are still in our infancy. Whether it's the RTI, whether it's the RTE, all of us have to figure out how to manage the public policy process. And that is a capability that all of us need to acquire. Yeah. So is there a way to talk of the entire corporate responsibility without the role of the government? I think not at all possible. Not at all possible.
Sure, thank you.
Can I just ask a question here? Sorry, it's kind of breaking your flow. My own personal impression was that the problem, the fundamental problem, is the misnaming of this entire effort. The minute we say it's corporate philanthropy, it kind of is in a different space. So this is definitely not social responsibility at all. Because if you look at environmental impact legislation, EIA legislation, that had CSR element. It was looking at the business impact of the corporate, of the industry.
Agreed.
There was public consultation built in. The problem is we are calling this bit CSR, where actually it is hardcore corporate philanthropy.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And I expect that in another 5 to 10 years, it will be called that way.
It will be renamed.
It will be called that way.
And then a lot of processes will start making sense. I mean,
exactly. So as far as we are concerned, we should treat it as corporate philanthropy. And then begin to examine even corporate philanthropy has to be strategic. That's it. And then everything else falls in terms, and that's why I like the point you said, without a participatory appraisal, what are we talking about? A planning process. And participatory appraisals, I have not seen a single project which does not have a 10-year or a 15-year lifespan on social change. So your entire CSR plan, as at the vocabulary of today, is really a 15-year plan or a 20-year plan. It's not a 1-year rolling plan like what you do for profitability.
So I think that's where the challenge is happening, Vasanthi, that we are actually having these reporting templates which say project at the end of 1 year,
Exactly.
Whereas anybody who is a practitioner has spent even a day on the ground knows that you're talking about decades, not about years.
I agree with you. But you'll also see something, Pallav, if you look at Pankaj. Sorry. I forgot you were recording.
Couple of points, I think, whether we call it philanthropy or CSR, I mean, without going into theory here, of course, the idea we are exploring here is the business society relationship and how can business positively impact society and can lead or can contribute to societal transformation in one way or the other. So we may call it something. In Europe, it would be business responsibility or sustainability, XYZ. So regional differences would definitely be there. That's one. Second, I feel is that, nothing stops a corporate from making a commitment that is long-term. I think, we can't leave it all to the law. The law it doesn't say, in fact, the law is very clear that, you should be there, you should try and make a long-term commitment. So that's the second thing. And as CSR professionals, I think we have a lot of internal stakeholder alignment work on that aspect to do. And I think once your leadership is aligned, and I can say that, I'm sure Pankaj would also agree. Once your leadership is behind you, I think long-term commitment becomes very easy. For one Tata Group, we have minimum, our partners have been with us for about 3 years, and these are new partners. And then we have 5 years and above, and we are not our CSR journey is all of 6 years. So we really believe in long-term commitment, and I think we need to do that. We need to sensitize our internal stakeholders why a long-term commitment is required.
So drawing from that point of, long-term commitment and actually looking into the future and not planning for short-term, I want to actually go to the next section, where we are exactly discussing this. How do we plan for the long term? How do we, how do we opine on the preparedness, various coping mechanisms, that we have or we can think of? We'll also, in this coming section, are going to discuss some non-negotiable themes, right? Like gender or technology that we must now onwards instill in our programs. And also we'll think how social development is going to look like in the post-pandemic world. So first question to Sripat. In the near future, from the NGO perspective, what do you think will be the biggest challenges? And we want to hear your recommendations also for that.
Sure. So for many grassroots organizations, I think survival itself is going to be one of the biggest challenge, given the situation that they are in, that we are foreseeing. Having said that, for those who survive, I think I would like to talk about 2 aspects of impact or challenge. One, maintaining the current level of impact with lower level of resources. I see that as the biggest challenge that all of us are facing now. And second, staying on course with the purpose or objects of the non-profit, staying on course with why you actually started what you started off. And I'll talk about it in detail. When I say maintaining the current level of impact, we all know that all the vulnerable population that we serve have become even more vulnerable now. And one of the things that has impacted is obviously loss of wages, income, etc. So what we are finding is that we are suddenly back to maybe 2 years where we were. To give you an example of a school health program that we run, where we've just had children who are now learning to, let's say, brush twice daily or eat a fruit a day, with parents, one of the parents losing the job, loss of income, etc. Suddenly now we cannot expect them to start back where they are today. So there's going to be a time lag. Particularly in terms of healthy behaviors, there is going to be an impact. So we have a situation wherein the vulnerable has gone down. At the same time, the providers, NGOs, they are also become more vulnerable, both from uncertainty perspective and funding issues that we are foreseeing. So I believe one of the biggest challenge each of us are facing is, how do I achieve my purpose, or how do I maintain the current level of, you can say, impact, programming, etc., with low resources. So how we are looking at it, we are looking at it from 2 perspectives. One is ensuring resilience. So which obviously is in short term, looking at your operational sustainability, talking to your donors, renegotiating your MOUs, and looking at long-term partnerships, employee safety, etc. But I think more emphasis is required on what we call as reimagining your purpose, reimagining your mission, rechannelizing your resources. Like I mentioned earlier, we are classifying our mission in three. One is core mission, second is complementary initiative, third is peripheral activities. To give you an example, as a health focused organization, our core focus, let's say when we talk about mobile health center program, is when we work in the communities, we are ensuring access to healthcare for the urban poor community. So that's really our core mission. So we want to kind of channelize all our core resources to strengthening that core mission. What is let's say complementary to it? Let's say health financing or health insurance, that's complementary. And third would be, which is periphery, would be helping the communities earn more so they can invest in their health. Now, when I have resource crunch, we are very clear that we are not going to get into peripheral activities. The resources that we have, if we have supplementary resources, we may invest in complementary initiatives, but our core funding has to go into our core purpose or core mission that we have. That's one suggestion or one thought I would like to leave the audience with. And second most important thing is about resources. And when it comes to resources, we all know that in our country, like one of the panelists mentioned, that from government funding now it's all come to corporate CSR or corporate foundations. With FCRA coming in, we have not discussed FCRA and how it's going to have impact on even the partnerships and other fundings, but that's another challenge that we are seeing. The second recommendation that I would have is expanding the resources. If we are too dependent on corporate CSR, we ourselves are looking at how do we expand our resources to other buckets, so to say, like HNIs, individuals, crowdfunding. Though they may never be able to replace what a corporate CSR foundation can bring in, but it's always important, particularly when it comes to expanding your supplementary funding for your complementary initiatives. One should look at that aspect. So that's one. Second challenge that I mentioned is about staying on course with purpose. And this is the biggest challenge I feel. With resource coming down, particularly for, let's say, sub 5 CR NGOs, there is going to be I would say, a risk of losing focus, taking small time projects just to make sure that you are able to survive. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. So there, my thought is that one should avoid short-term gains, learn to sacrifice, I would say, and my choice would be to work on a low-budget, sustained engagement, say 3 to 5 years kind of projects, rather than taking a huge budget 1-year program. So because as an organization, as your purpose, staying on course for which you have existed, you have come into existence, and channelizing your mission is going to be critical. So I would say these are the two biggest challenges from strategic perspective that each NGO is going to face, in addition to various operational challenges, obviously, which are already there up in front of us. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sripat. And I'm sorry, I'll take a minute's break because Sripat needs to move out of the conference because he has another call. So thank you so much, Sripat, for your inputs and being our panelist today.
Thank you, everyone. It was great meeting you, I would say. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So Supriya, you spoke of you or your organization working on a long term with same set of NGOs or having long-term partnerships. So in such partnerships and in such programs, how do you cope with delays? And by delays, what I mean is due to COVID-19, which has been the recent example. So there has been some delays and some roadblocks, definitely. So how are you coping up with that?
So again, two parts to my answer. The first one is, of course, as a process, what did we do? So, as soon as we knew that we were going into a lockdown, we initiated these multiple conversations with all our partners. We have a forum called Partners for the Goals. It's actually dedicated to goal number 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals. And for the last 5 years, it's a forum we use to connect to all our partners and also to facilitate knowledge exchange between partners and for them to take forward conversations, creations, and opportunities that they would want to pursue on their own. So this is something that we've been doing. So we use that forum to actually start these conversations to talk about, okay, what has hit us, and really connect at a human level, not as a as an organization that we are funding or they're funded by us, because let's not forget COVID-19 impacted us in ways that we had not imagined. And at the end of the day, we all need a bit of kindness and compassion. So it's, while we need hard numbers, I think right now the world, the community, the society needs a lot of kindness and compassion. I don't think we can get by beyond that, without that. So I think we tried not to artificially inject that into partnership, but we realized this is not the time to go for deliverables, because we are dealing with people, right? And people have families, and people are worried about their families, and communities are at risk. So our first focus was to make sure that our partners, our community members are safe. We like what Pankaj said, also reach out to them to understand what were the immediate needs, and it was essentially around food. We also kept all the stakeholders informed. So if it was a board, or if it was any other stakeholder, to make sure there were no surprises. Everybody should know what kind of delays we are facing, what challenges we are facing. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part is, and this is easier to say now in retrospect, I don't really see them as delays, Tejasvi, because in this delays that we have witnessed, we have seen innovations coming, right? So this period was used by our partners to look at different activities and different interventions. And I'll give you an example of a program that we launched, in fact, in March this year, and that got severely hit by the pandemic in Bihar. It's a livelihoods program, but also has education and healthcare as an element. And we are working with a very good partner in Bihar. And for the longest time, we said, okay, there are delays, we are not moving. And then during one of our conversations, we realized, okay, how about using this time to spread awareness on COVID-19 in the community? Because the community was badly hit by the pandemic. And Bihar really did not have an active campaign on awareness and sensitization on COVID-19. So that's a new activity that emerged from the delay. There was another activity, there was another intervention where in one of our vocational training programs in Pune, we used this time to digitalize the modules, the training sessions, so that the women could actually look at these modules on their smartphones or phones, and they could actually get on with some kind of training. So in retrospect, I feel this time period has been extremely creative, and it has really pushed us to think differently and pushed us to go into areas that we thought we would never venture into. And then we also do a lot of employee volunteering. So that's another aspect where we were like, oh my God, now our employees cannot even work in the community. And then we came up with this whole virtual mentoring, virtual volunteering kind of format. So I don't look at it as delays, and I would really, urge everyone to sort of reflect and look at these shining examples in their portfolio. And there will be several, I'm pretty sure of that, which will be like, these beacons of hope. And so I know it's a slightly roundabout answer to the question, but what seemed like delayed implementation is now turning out into prep for very, very innovative practices.
I completely agree with you. I think all you panelists have been saying this, that we have to look at, COVID-19, not only from a challenge perspective, but also how it was an opportunity. And for my audience, I'll just quickly summarize what Supriya you said, because there was really some important points. So definitely looking at innovation, then alternative methods of working with the same set of beneficiaries, augmenting your systems and processes, exploring new cause areas or geographies to work, exploring what your employees are interested in terms of giving back to the community, and definitely leveraging technology. All have been, those shining examples of how you can make best out of, the worst. So thank you for that. I want to turn to Pankaj and kind of ask him to elaborate on. I think, Pankaj, you mentioned earlier that development does not happen in isolation, and I can't agree more. What I want to understand from you are how would you look at integrating some of the cross-cutting themes, be it gender or technology, into your existing programs? Because today is not anymore an age when we can ignore this and still go for the same envisaged impact.
Right. So I think I want to give a slightly contrary answer to kind of gender and technology and those kind of obvious things that we always feel are necessary and required. I think Supriya kind of really hit the nail. We need kindness, right? And I think we need to go down to that level. So we need collaborations. I mean, one thing which we realize kind of very explicitly is that a place like here, you have Tatas there, you have Force Marshal there, you have us there, you have Mercedes there, and we don't talk to each other. None of our CSR heads even know. I mean, if we bump into each other in the, I mean, we'll kind of talk about why you're coming so close to me because it's COVID and supposed to maintain 6 foot distance. We won't even know who they are. And our NGO partners also work in those little silos where there's a project funded by me, but that is being insulated from a project funded by the Tata Counts and being funded by Mercedes. So one thing which we have been really aggressive about in Pune is collaborations. Those organizing as opposed to organization point that Vasanthi made, I think that's a really critical point, that we need to get away from our banners and our logos and our kind of brands, because when somebody is dying, they don't care about whose logo is stuck on the ventilator or a HFNOs. I mean, we need to have oxygen, we need to have the nurses, we need to have practitioners, we need to get the ambulance to get that person there. Everybody plays a part, and we are not doing it to get thanks from anybody or them to buy a little product. I mean, I think now is the time to kind of go beyond that. So collaboration is something that was a really critical feature of how Pune as a city, as a community, corporates, industries, individuals, even civil society organizations that are quasi-religious in nature, everybody kind of stepped up without kind of really getting into who they are and what their mandate and what they're getting a salary for is. I think the second bit, I think, which is again equally critical, and again kind of going back to the Bajaj legacy, we need a Gandhi. We need to start talking about resilient communities. We need to start talking about, I mean, a lot of CSR, a lot of NGO conversation still is about dependence. It still is about we will do this. I mean, it has to be inverted completely or around itself, that communities are going to do X, Y, and Z, and where can we slot in our little support that we have? I mean, our support, our numbers are trivial in comparison to the larger development needs of India. But it's not that we are irrelevant. We start becoming irrelevant if we start taking on this entire burden that we are going to reform India. I mean, but there are places where our support will be critical. It will be absolutely essential. It will be life-saving if it happens correctly on the right day at the right time. And I think we need to start exploring these spaces. But I think we need Gandhi. We need that idea that communities are going to be the future of pandemic response or crisis response, not individual organizations. And how do we create strong communities rather than a better CSR program, a better NGO program? I think those to me are the two most important things. I mean, if there are cross-cutting themes, it is about resilient communities and it is about collaborations.
Absolutely. No, I can't agree more with you, because definitely gender, technology, we discussed that, but the whole angle of making our approach more collaborative, not only the corporate NGO kind of a collaboration, but also corporate collaboration, and making the approach entirely more humane. I think these are the key takeaways from what you, Pankaj, said. Vasanthi, the next question and the last in the discussion is for you. you heard the entire conversation, and you have been witnessing a lot of programs, interventions, efforts taken by not only the government but also by the civil society, corporates, etc. Tell me, how do you imagine the entire social development sector after 2020? Will there be any significant changes? Will there be any opportunities arising from these challenges? I think Supriya and Pankaj anyway spoke about it, but I want you to speak more from the social development sector perspective.
So I think personally for me, and as I look at across all the sectors, I think the pandemic has leveled us, particularly the key decision makers. Yeah. And I think the point that Supriya made, I want to kind of tie in because there were these little nuggets. And she said, it's really about the leadership at the top. And for the first time, the nature of conversations, when you have your direct reportee's mother in the hospital and all your company resources cannot help her, it has really hit hard at that level of decision making. So I think there is a certain sense of transformation that I see, and India doesn't need everybody to be transformed. You just need 1/3 of the country to transform for the remaining 2/3 to be impacted. Okay. And that I think is amazing that has happened at a very individual level. Second one, we always knew and we continue to be proud of is that it is ultimately that citizen middle class India through its 1 rupee contribution that keeps the social sector alive. Okay. And I think for some years, the NGOs forgot that. Now we are coming back and saying that it is that 1 rupee from 1 million people that will give me the corpus to be able to continue to exist. And that 1 rupee that somebody can give from their pocket is today relevant. And I think that's a shift that is important, because at the end of the day, citizens have an accountability for their country. And as long as NGOs appreciate that the work that they are doing and the purpose that they're doing is a collective purpose, I think there is a constituency. Now, that's a second one. We knew it, but it's always good to reaffirm. The third one, and believe you me, I mean, it's such a delight on this panel to listen to the collaboration. The thing that I'm beginning to realize is there is an intent to collaborate. The question is, how do we build them into partnerships and alliances? Yeah. One of my biggest takeaway during the COVID is actually how can we harness the power of what we have at a management school in a way that we can create capability for different audiences across different sectors, and moving out of that an exclusive NGO leadership development program that we used to do. We are now transforming it into looking at a learning hub for professionals in development. Yeah. And not necessarily certifications, they may be byproducts, but in a larger canvas on how do we actually make the sense of community education that's accessible to anybody. And last but not the least, I think the most important one is that we have to recognize interdependencies. And I wish the vocabulary of the future is that inclusive growth, I mean, which has been mooted for 15 years. I think we now understand inclusion comes at some compromise with growth, and growth does come with some exclusion. I think COVID has shown both those dimensions. Yeah. So in some way, how can all of us across sectors look at this inclusive growth, not as your agenda and my agenda, but as our agenda? I think that place is where conversations, because there is a place for independence, there's a place for dependence, there is a place for independence, but above all, there's a place for interdependence. And I think if there's one thing that COVID has taught all of us is that interdependence is what we have to work together. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that was the best possible summary of whatever we spoke in the last hour or so. So I just want to recap the key learnings from the entire session before I conclude. So definitely we all agree pandemic has been a setback for all of us, but it has come with its own set of opportunities, and it is for us, be it consultants like us, be it corporates, academia, NGO like you, for unearthing these opportunities and how do we work together in a humane manner, and set our eyes on more inclusive growth. Its growth is not for few people, it's for everyone, and become more interdependent. I think that was one of the key takeaways for us. So I really want to thank you all for sharing these insights and kind of taking time out of your busy schedules. I really hope our audience found these insights hopeful, meaningful, and insightful, and they will be able to incorporate that into their CSR interventions. Thank you once again for this time, and stay safe. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Karma Summit India 2020. I am Tanu Sood and I head Global Delivery for Enterprise at Kudera. What an eventful day it has been participating in this inclusive, action-oriented dialogue with leaders from all walks of life. Just like Kudera's tech platform unifies the CSR lifecycle for companies in India and abroad, this forum truly reflects the best of our work and the best of our country. COVID-19 has been a horrific global tragedy which has impacted one and all across all sections of society, race, culture, religion, ethnicity, and background, but has landed with disproportionate force upon the lives and dreams of the most vulnerable. If ever there was a time for a system change, and for collective impact, and for partnerships, it is right now. As each one of you is rolling up your sleeves to make differences in your communities right now, and take a step back from your daily work to connect across regions and professions in order to build a movement of doing good, we have a small virtual volunteering activity planned as the concluding session of the day. Today's dialogue has been with leaders who see communities as a collection of assets and not a collection of problems. As the Nobel Peace Prize winning Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, our keynote speaker, remarked, India is a land of 100 problems, but the mother of 1 billion solutions. I absolutely loved his idea of building a common dream with the community against common enemies. It was inspiring to see changemakers like Mr. Nachiket Sule from Tata Trust, Mr. Shashidhar Vempala from Pernod Ricard India, Ms. Rumi Malik Mitra from IBM India, Ms. Svetlana Pinto from Novartis, Mr. Ransom D'Souza from GlaxoSmithKline, Ms. Sakina Baker from Philips, Mr. Pankaj Pallab from Bajaj Auto, Ms. Supriya Singh from Tata Communications, Mr. Sripat Desai from America's India Foundation, and Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan from IIM Bangalore, joining us from different backgrounds and organizational affiliations to share their views on the most important themes of the trends that we have seen in the past few months, like SDGs 2030s, the learnings from COVID impact on healthcare in India, the strategy for CSR continuity. The pandemic has only exacerbated the great divide on access to technology, the gender divide, access to healthcare, and in general, the difference between the haves and the have-nots that is amplified every day by government and individual actions. It is only right or just, as Mr. Kailash Satyarthi noted, that all communities, all change makers come together and co-create the solutions that are needed to come out of this distress. The necessity of digitization, partnerships across stakeholder groups, and setting the right goals to ensure continuity was highlighted by all our esteemed panelists. I was inspired by the range of discussions that we had on virtual volunteering, which has become a new norm given that physical spaces and the norms of social distancing have to be honored. We were joined by Mr. Gulati from Toyota Kirloskar Motors, and Mr. Deepak Prabhu from Cognizant, Ms. Pushpa Aman Singh from GuideStar, Ms. Shilpa Sinha Harsh from HGS, and Mr. Anurag Mishra from Cipla Foundation, who spoke to us about how to empower employees virtually through the community volunteering framework and the challenges of sustained corporate volunteering to create inclusive impact. I know what a difference it would have made to be sitting next to each other as a common forum, but I hope this experience of joining in together virtually has had the same catalyzing and nourishing power for you. The key takeaways from the day have been the opportunities for creating impact, co-creating solutions, and narrowing the gap between corporates and nonprofits through partnerships and inclusive solutions. Incidentally, the United Nations has also recognized today, 25th November 2020, as the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. And we have more conversations lined up tomorrow on the gender and the COVID divide to address the challenges that women face and how COVID has further escalated those challenges. We also have a lineup of esteemed guests to share their views on technology for good, the changing need for boardroom discussions on doing business with a purpose, and especially for the NGOs, we have a session on strategy for NGOs. We also have a lineup on a session for startups who are working in the space of social good, and the value of partnerships in implementing programs that transform the community. So stay tuned for tomorrow. Now, moving on to the last session of the day, which is the virtual volunteering session, our partners in the activity are Sense International India, who are going to teach us sign language as we approach the International Day of Disabled Persons. Sense International India is the only national level organization supporting needs-based services which enable children and adults with deaf blindness to overcome the challenges caused by this. Hope you enjoy the session. Good evening.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining this session. I know this session is going to be very interactive, and I know you have come here with all your energies after the whole summit of tiring day. But before we get into actual sign language session, so we want to take you through why are you learning the sign language and for whom you're going to learn the sign language for. So I don't know how many of you know about the cause that Sense India is working for, or even heard about the term called deaf blindness. So before you understand what is deaf blindness, we want to give you a small experience of how it feels to be a deafblind person for a minute. So can you do this with me? Just close your ears, close your eyes, and assume you cannot talk. And now you are so thirsty, you need a glass of water. How are you going to ask for? Just take few seconds and then do this, and then realize, just understand how difficult it is going to be for a person who cannot see, who cannot hear, and who cannot speak, and then the person is very thirsty and then need a glass of water. It is not, yeah, it's difficult, right? And it's just like that. It is not just about the water, it's about everyday living. A deafblind child who cannot see, hear, and then speak has to converse with the mother, and the mother has to fulfill the needs of a child. This is exactly what we are talking about, is deafblindness. You might have heard about visual impairment, you might have heard about hearing impairment, but if you come across somebody who cannot see, hear, and then when the combination of both is going to be difficult, right? So yeah, this session is all about how do you interact with deafblind people and also hearing impaired people to create an inclusive world. It is not for them to include in our society, it is for us to include in their society. So you must be wondering that what somebody who cannot see, hear, and then speak can actually do in his life, right? He or she would be doing in their life, what they can achieve in their life. So we have a small video which will talk about the success that we have been able to create from past 22 years of our journey. And despite being a deafblind person, what somebody could achieve. So I will take you through that video, and then we'll come back here. Yeah, I hope you got enough insight of work now after seeing the video. So yeah, for the today's sign language session, I'll hand it over to Srini. So he will take you through why sign language, what is the need for learning sign language, and who invented sign language. So all those things you're going to learn from your trainer today. Yeah, over to you, Srini.
Yeah, thank you, Kirti. Good morning, everyone, all of you. Happy to meet you all. Okay. Today we are going to learn some basic sign language, which is going to be used with the persons with hearing impairment as well as persons with deaf blindness. So let me share my screen first. So first of all, before going to the class, I would like to ask a question. What do you people think who could have developed the sign language? So if we ask such question, there is no proper answer for this because we cannot say any one particular person name for who could have developed any kind of language. So languages all developed as the years come. The same way, sign language is also not developed by any particular person, but it was developed by the hearing impaired community. That is the persons with hearing impairment. Deaf, we call them persons with deafness. So these people, they have developed this communication, sign language, for the purpose of communicating with other people, to express their needs, to express their desires, to fulfill their uh, needs, and also to know what other people are saying. So that is the purpose for developing the sign language. And when we say sign language, it is basically a visual gestural language. So we can see the people are doing the signs and we will understand. This is very easy for a person with hearing impairment. What about a person with deaf blindness? If there is a person with deaf blindness who is having problem in vision as well as problem in hearing. So this person cannot see the others who are signing. Then how are they going to communicate? But they do use sign language, but it is called tactile sign language. Persons with deaf blindness, they use tactile sign language, where you can see in this first picture, a young adult is communicating with her father. So father is just signing. We can sign as usual as we sign with the deaf person. The same way we can sign. The only difference is the adult with deaf blindness, they hold our hands. Okay, they are going to read the signs by touching. Their hands become their eyes. So they read through their hands. So we can just sign it and then they'll be holding our hands all through the communication field. This is not the only method of communication used by persons with deaf blindness. There are many more methods which are used by persons with deaf blindness. Now you can see in the second picture, someone is writing on the palm of the person. So this is called print on palm, where you can just write all the alphabets, whether it is in English or any other language, whatever the language the person knows, we can use that language and we can write those things on their palm. So this is called print on palm. Whereas if you see the third picture, there is one young adult who is holding the uh, mouth of the other person who is communicating with him. So this is called tactile speech reading. This communication name is Tadoma. So Tadoma is tactile speech reading. We can just speak as usually we speak. The person with deaf blindness will be keeping their hands on our mouth like this to feel the lip movement as well as to feel the vibration from the throat. So this is how they understand, they receive communication messages from other person. So these are so many different methods are there. But today we are going to learn the basic science, how the deafblind people are going to communicate. So before getting into any kind of training, we need to focus on certain things, that is handshake. What kind of handshake we need to use because maybe sometimes we may use open palm or claw shape or compact. Sometimes fingers will be together or fingers will be apart. So depending on the words, depending on the sentences, we will be signing, and the shape of the hands will be keep changing. Another one is the location, that is the origin, from where the sign is starting, maybe above your head or just front of your tongue, where it is going to start from. And then orientation is the where the sign is moving. So it is a visual gestural language. It is a full of action. So there will be a movement. So from where the hand is moving to where. And then the next one is the movement. That is very much important. Some signs we need to do it slow, and some signs we need to do it fast, and some signs maybe we need to do it again and again. So that is called repetitive. Sometimes from forward to backward or backward to forward, and sometimes curved. So different kind of movements are there that we need to focus. And then there are non-manual signs. Non-manual signs includes facial expressions. So without facial expression, there is no communication at all. So whenever you are communicating, even with a person with deafness, um, though they know only sign language, but it is not that we use only our hands to communicate. While communicating, we also use our facial expression and our body language. It is called body language and also gestures. This all combines only. It is sign language. So see, if you imagine I'm going to mask my face, you are not, the person is not going to look at my face. Only I'm going to talk using my hands. Even though they are very well known with sign language, they are not going to understand what I'm trying to communicate, because they need to see our facial expression, and they need, some people they do lip reading. When we are communicating, we also talk. So they lip read, and also they observe our body language. For example, I want to say I'm happy. So how do we say happy? I cannot keep myself like a sad person and tired or dull, and I do happy. This is not going to give them any good meaning. So if you want them to understand very well what we are trying to convey, then it has to go with the facial expression and the body language. So I want to say happy, then I need to change my face, like I'm happy, so happy to meet you. And I want to call them someone, come fast, then I cannot say, no, there is no. So I want to ask them, come fast, come on. So when you see I'm using my body language, facial expression, everything. The same way, I want to say, let me tell you one word. Can anyone do sleep? Very basic, very simple gesture. Sleep. How do you sleep? So many people, what they do this kind of sign. The sign is correct, but watch the facial expression. What is the mistake here? I'm kept my eyes open. So that is the wrong one. So if you want to convey the proper meaning, then for sleep, you need to close your eyes and do the sign. Then they get the right meaning. Next, I would like to ask you people, how many of you know sign language or the basic gestures? I hope we all, when we talk, we use our body gesture, facial expressions, and many other simple signs we'll be using. We are not going to keep ourselves rigid like a soldier and talk. We will be keeping free ourselves, and then showing very good expression in our face, and also good body language. And I have listed out more than 100 words. All these 100 words, more than 100 words, you people can do the sign. There is no need for anyone to teach you at all. So how do you ask someone to come? So just you will say come. How will you say someone to go? Go. Sit, stand, run, skip. So catch or throw. And now it comes cut. So there is difference. So if you want them to cut using the scissors, then you need to do it like this. If you want them to use the knife and do chopping, then you will do cut. And then drink. Again, sleep, we already discussed. Yawn. Cry. Now again the word cry comes. So now we need to change our facial expression as per the word. So crying, I need to change my face also. So climb up. Now there is bit difference. Climb up. We cannot go in a straight way. So from bottom to top, you need to take your hand. So I said about the orientation. You remember? So orientation is for climb up. The first position will be the hand down, and the movement is slowly, gradually climbing up, going up. So the climb down, it is the opposite way. Keep your, the first position will be, your hands will be on the top, and then gradually you will be coming down, climb down. Wink, kiss, all these words, you can do it even without using your hands. So as I said, body language is there. We can communicate using our eyes, eyebrows, lips, and even cheeks and your shoulders. So when I say kiss without using your hands, how will you do kiss? Just with your lips. That's right. And then winking, wink, wink your eyes. And see, in the exam hall, some people do. When teacher supervisor is coming, they just show like this, show their eyes. Someone is coming, coming. So even without using any of your other body parts, only with your eyes, and then somebody asks some question and you don't know, you need to think, then you will be using your eyebrows. So your eyebrows will go like this. It will swing. So like this also, it all covers. So hello, no, threatening. How do you threaten? So we cannot just say threaten like this. We have to say. So now this is the where we need to show difference for persons with deaf blindness. Whereas the person with deaf blindness not going to look at your facial expression. It is very, very difficult for the person to observe our facial expression because they are going to touch your hands and read what we are signing. So I want to say threaten, then actually your hands need to become very stiff. Okay. Then they feel the stiffness in your hand. Okay. When I want to say fast, if I do like this, they may not get the real meaning. So whereas if I say fast, 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 then they know that movement is very fast. So they understand it in the right way. The same way, there are so many other things are there. So there is one single word brush, but it has different meaning. Brushing your teeth, you need to do it like this. Brushing paintbrush, you have to do it like this. So depending on the context, you need to change your words. The same way, open the bottle. If it is a lid, we can thread and we will open. If it is a car code, we need the opener, then open like this. So ironing, this way we do. Sometimes we need to imagine this hand becomes now the ironing board, and this becomes like you are holding the iron box and you are doing it iron. And the last word, if you see, welcome or invite. So there are two differences there. When do you say welcome to someone? When you are inviting someone home, we will say welcome. So that time you can just invite them. Come there, please come, welcome. So somebody is saying thanks, and you want to accept that, and then that time we say welcome. Again, that time also we use welcome, but that time we cannot use this welcome. So that time what we do, we are accepting that. So gently bow yourself, welcome. So these are the differences. Depending on the context, we need to understand the signs and change it. And then the next one is clap. So in the hearing impaired community, clappers, this is the one, applause. Okay, there is no sound. Even you make sound, they are not going to hear it. So they use this way, clap. Okay, so there are fight, again fight. Now I'm doing the changes in my body language as well as the hands, bringing stiffness in my hand. Same way, you can go through all these words and you can sign by yourself. Now there is a word big and small. So very simple, house. What is the, how do you sign house? Very simple sign, house. Okay, now let us see. Let us make a simple phrase in sign language. Okay, now you learned house, you learned big, you learned small. Now I'm giving you a simple phrase like my home is big. So how do you say my home big? My home is small. My home small. Okay. I will let me do one more simple phrase. I think hope you people can identify what it is. Okay. I'm saying again. This is one. The next one is let me do it again. Next one. I hope you people got it, right? The first one is my home is nearby. Another word is phrases my home is far. That's it. So this way we can phrase simple sentence as well. Okay. Let us go to the next part, that is manual alphabet or finger spelling. Um, Finger spellings are nothing but using our different hand shape, spelling out all the alphabets, A to Z, all the alphabets we can spell out by making different hand shapes. So this finger spelling, there are many differences are there in American finger spelling. They use only one hand to spell out all the alphabets, whereas in British Sign Language and Indian Sign Language, they use both the hands. So now with the persons with deaf blindness, we use single hand. That is very much comfortable for communicating and make them understand. So that is what we are going to learn today. And these finger spellings are used when you don't know exact sign, when you don't know how to sign for a particular word. That time you can finger spell and make them understand. So are you people ready to learn sign language, finger spelling? So this is one basic things I would like to tell. So how we how do I sign? The same way you people need to keep your hands. Now look at my thumb. It is there in the top. Whereas if I put like this, bring my thumb little bit down, this becomes another alphabet. This is different alphabet and this is another different alphabet. If I take my little finger, this is one alphabet. If I open my thumb, this is another alphabet. So there are differences are there. So that we need to be focused a little bit. So are you people ready? Shall we start? Okay. I will be doing, you people also just follow me. I will be doing it slow and you can do it as well. And one more important thing, when we are finger spelling or communicating with other people, now you no need to look at your own hand. So the finger spelling, we are going to do it for the person who is in the opposite to us. So always keep your palm facing to the opponent, right? Let's start. This is A, keep your thumb up, A, B, sometimes this one, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, just draw J in the air, J, J, K. Thumb between your index and middle finger. Keep your thumb between index and middle finger and keep the wrist straight. If you put down your wrist, this becomes another alphabet. So K is wrist straight and then thumb between your index and middle finger. K. L, very simple. L. M, three fingers and keep your thumb there and close it. M. N, thumb between two fingers and close it. N. O, that is also very simple. O. P, I said this is K. Now I'm putting my wrist down. This becomes P. This is K and this is P. And Q, this is G. When you put your wrist down, this becomes Q, right? G and Q. R, rest your middle finger on the index finger, R. And then S. So if you keep your thumb here, that becomes A. Just thumb here in the front, it becomes S. Yes. And then T, bring out your thumb in between the two fingers, T. Then U, for U, both the fingers need to be together because when you split it out, this becomes V. W, X, just hook your index finger, X, Y. So I said this is I. When you bring out your thumb, this becomes Y. And Z. Just draw Z in the air. Okay. Is it easy? Shall we do it again? Yes. Now this becomes your head and you're nodding. Yes. Good. Ready. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Just thumb between your index and middle finger and put your wrist down. P. Q. R. S. T. U. V. W. X. Y. Z. Okay, very good. So let us do it one more time. And after this, I'm going to do simple words. I'm going to finger spell simple words, and you people are going to find out what it is. So observe carefully and do it again. So, right? Ready? Let's start. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and is it? Great. Good job. So are you people ready for the quiz? I'll do simple. Okay. Now hope you can see the screen as well. And there are some words are given. You can try to find out what it is. Meanwhile, let me start with the three-letter words. We'll go step by step from simple to complex. So, ready? I'll do first one. Hope somebody would have found the letter. Very simple, because I will do it once again. So it was a car. C-A-R, car. Good. Next letter. Again, a three-letter word. Okay. I will do it once again. What is it? D-O-G, dog. Right, good. Let me go to five-letter word. Hope you people remember this alphabet. Okay. Shall I do it once again? Yes, it is Xerox. X-E-R-O-X. Xerox. Good. Let me do one more letter, six-letter word. Shall I do it once again? Right? It is E M B R Y O, embryo. Right? Let me go to seven-letter word. What is this? So this is different letter. I'm putting my wrist down. This is alphabet. Got it? If anyone got it, then a plus for them. Let me do it once again for the rest of the people. It is pigment. Right. Next one word. Next word. So now there are two letter comes next. So I'm not doing it the same place. I'm just moving my fingers. So that is two letters. Let me do it again. Anybody got it? R U B E L L A, rubella. So rubella is the foremost cause for deafblindness in our country. Next word. I will do it once again. This is U S H E R, usher. So there is one syndrome called usher. People are born with hearing impairment, and then later on they lose their vision as well, and then they become deafblind because of this usher. So one more word, last word I will do it. Anybody got it? Then applause for them. I will do once again. So what is it? Syndrome. S Y N D R O M E. Syndrome. Good job, everybody. Thank you so much. So we will do, I hope you can see the screen. So there are some more words out there where you can see this and practice. You can find out what it is, right? Some more words. Okay. Now let us learn some numbers. Okay. So this is the sign for number. It is very easy. So if you learn 1 to 9, then we can continue the same thing for rest of the numbers. So this is 1, 2, and 3, just little bit change. Bring your thumb out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me do it once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for 6, touch your little finger. 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. I will do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So it is very easy. Up to 10 we have done. Now 11 to 19, 11 to 20 also you learn. Then afterwards 21 to 99, it is very simple. So for 11, now we did 1 this, and if you turn your wrist, this becomes 11, 11, 12. This is 3, turn your hand, 13. This is 4, when you turn your wrist, this becomes 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2 and 0, 20, right? I will do it again, 11 to 20, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. Now, how to do 21 to 99? Now, you know, for 1 to 9, you know, the same thing you need to repeat. 2, 1, 21. 2, 2, 22. 2, 3, 23. 2, 4, 24. 2, 5, 25. I'm not going to do it till 99. It will take time. So this is the same thing. Let me randomly say some numbers. 3, 0, 30. 3, 5, 35. 3, 9, 39. 4, 5, 45. 4, 7, 47. 5, 2, 52. 5, 6, 56. 6, 1, 61. 6, 8, 68. 7, 0, 70. 7, 4, 74. 7, 9, 70. 8, 2, 82. 8, 6, 86. 8, 8, 88. 9, 1, 91. 9, 4, 94. 9, 7, 97. 9, 9, 99. For 100, we can do it in two ways. 1, 0, 0, 100. That is one way. The other way is, what is the, for 100 in Roman numbers? That is C. So we can say 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. So for 1000 in Roman numerals, it is M. So 1000. You have to make it M and keep it here. 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000, 6000, 7000, 8000, 9000. For 10,000, do 10 and 1000. And what about lakh and all? Just we can just spell 1L, 1 lakh. So this is how we do numbers. It is very simple. So let me do some numbers randomly. Let's see whether you people could get it or not. All right. Simple. 2, 4, 7, 3, good, and then 9, 15, 16, 43, 4, 3, 43. Then 6, 2, 62. What was it? 9, 9, 99. Okay, let me say some 3-number words. I will do it again. 205. 205. Right, good. Next. This is 300, 306. Let me try. 704, right? That is 809. Let's try in thousands. Notice it. 4,000 and this is 10. 4,010. Yeah. Now, I did 6,402. Right? Very good job. I think hope numbers are very easy for you. And let us learn some simple signs, which are basic signs which are used in our day-to-day life. So good morning, good night, welcome, all these things. So for good morning, this is good and morning. Sometimes people, they do it with a single hand or sometimes they use both the hand. Both are good. So how do you, we need to attach meaning with the signs. Then only you will be able to remember those signs, and also you can develop your own signs as well when you attach meaning with it. Why this sign? So now we said this is good, and then morning. What do you understand by this? What meaning can you attach? Yes, it is a sun rays. Sun is racing. So good morning. Then what about good night? Same way you attach meaning. The opposite way you do it. Good night. Sun is setting down. Good night. So what about good afternoon? So again, good afternoon. Sun is in the top. Good afternoon. Then what about good evening? So again, good evening. Little bit hands down. You can rest your arm here and evening. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night. Next, welcome. Already I said either you can do like this or you all know the sign for W. Finger spelling for W is this one. So you can make in both the hands and do welcome. Both are accepted. This way or just make W and do welcome. And then happy. Keep your, don't forget your facial expression. Happy. Yes. Please. So open palm just in front of your chest and ask, please. So you need to change your facial expression as well, please. And then sorry. You know the alphabet? Yes. I'm sorry. Again, circle. This is hand open, palm open, circular motion. Please. Yes. And then circular motion in front of your chest. It is sorry. You people know yes, and this is the sign for no. Good. Shall we do it again? Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night. And welcome or welcome. Happy and please, sorry, yes, no. Okay, good job. Next. Another basic thing, let's learn one important thing. That is, everybody has a name. Even for all the persons with deafness, deafblindness, all have name. But how do they call each other? So there are name signs are there. Name, this is the sign for name, sign. So they also keep name sign for everyone. To mention other person, they keep name sign. There are two methods used to have the name sign. One is just you can take the first letter of your name, first alphabet of your name, and place it around your body. Like my name is Srinivasan, so first letter S I have taken, and near the right shoulder Srinivasan. Whereas if another Srinivasan is there, what to do? You can place the same S and somewhere else, maybe this side or maybe a little bit above the just next to your face, or this way we can do it like that. So you can take your first alphabet of your name and do that name sign. The other method is the most effective and meaningful method is like which should tell your characteristics, or which may uh, tell you some, show your features in your features, like maybe you may have a mark or a scar or a mole. Maybe some people having more earrings, okay, or a dimpled chin, or a chubby cheeks, or maybe a person is a good singer or a good dancer. So your name sign should reflect that one, that way. So uh, yesterday we had a sign language session with some other volunteers, and one person came out with a very beautiful name sign. Her name starts with B, and she is a good dancer. So she did like this. So this is the sign for B, and then she did like this, like a dancing motion. That's a good one. The same way you can also have your name sign, which could tell your character or the uh, best of your things. And what do you think by this one? This is a female name, Roslyn, Rosie, Roslyn. So it tells about that rose flower. So this is how we can use name sign for people and use it. Uh, and now we came to the end. That's it. I hope you all understood well. And I request everyone to practice this simple things every day. If you don't practice, definitely you will forget. And just I will give few techniques that you can finger spell the names of all the people in your home, your friends, your colleagues, and keep you try to have name signs for everyone in your home or in your office. So remember all these things. How do you keep your name signs, right? Yeah. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity, and I'm very happy to connect with you all. Thank you so much. Keep practicing.